I want to start this analysis video by referring to Debussy himself. He actually hated analysis and used to say that it kind of killed the vibe of a work. Of course, at this stage, Debussy already developed his mature style, and one can argue whether analysis was still necessary for him. Of course, I disagree with him. Analysis is very useful for students, and especially if you want to absorb new ideas for composing. On the other hand, it is kind of cruel to dissect a work of art and look what is inside. We can easily get off track and misinterpret the ideas that the artist had in mind. A composer, especially Debussy, uses imagination, and sometimes ideas come spontaneously, without the necessity of a constructive framework. I think La Fille aux Cheveux de lin from his prelude is a composition that sits somewhere in the middle between improvisation and structure. It can more or less be analyzed in a functional harmonic framework, but in some places this is of little use. The piece has a dreamy folk-like and improvisational character. Debussy used some core ideas that are regularly present in his other work, and especially in his earlier work. Indeed, this prelude is the odd one of the first book. Most of the other ones are written in his more mature style. The recording that we just heard is from Ilaria Baldaccini. You can download it on Muse Open. Before we start the analysis, keep in mind these keywords and ideas. Pentatonics, plagal cadence, evaded cadence, parallel movement, and extension of chords, like coloring of chords with the 9th, the 11th, the 6th ajouté, or the added 6th. The composition starts with a quasi-pentatonic folk-like tune in G-flat major. Only the A-flat is missing. One could argue that the tonality here is a G-flat major chord with the added 6th note, E-flat. The French called this the 6th ajouté. It was common practice in the quote-unquote impressionistic era. By the way, Debussy didn't like that term. He referred to his own music as mysticism. Later, Debussy does give us some frame of reference by introducing a plagal cadence at the end of the melody. G-flat major appears to be confirmed. The melody itself starts on a long note followed by regular up and downward motion and waves. Debussy indicates sans rigueur, meaning without rigor, thus adding to the improvisational character. The cells used in the melody are all over the place in the composition, and this cell will be used often on a functional chord progression. Also notice this slur here, which seems kind of wrong, right? The E-flat and G-flat actually make an upbeat for the subsequent phrase. The next passage has a chorale in which the other voices move in contrary motion. Here is the chord progression that I found plausible. Debussy directly modulates with this B-flat chord to E-flat major. Notice the G natural here. The parallel key of G-flat major is E-flat minor, but Debussy opts for the distant key of E-flat major. He then restates the melody with an added upbeat on B-flat and C-flat. Now the melody gets a left-hand harmonization. We have two parallel dominant 7th chords on G-flat and A-flat. I choose to label them as secondary dominants that don't resolve. But that's not what Debussy had in mind, of course. He just chose these chords for the sound he wanted to create. However, I think we can use the key of G-flat major here because Debussy eventually modulates to G-flat major using the dominant 11th chord. We have D-flat, A-flat, C-flat, E-flat the 9th, and G-flat the 11th. As you can see, the 3rd, F natural, is missing. We are in G-flat major, and Debussy settles down the melody and repeats it one octave lower. This melody is also present in the last bar here, but in the higher register. The calm atmosphere is achieved by stepwise motion instead of the skips we had before. Here we have a tonic pedal on top of which we can distinguish a dominant chord, again without a 3rd. The upward melody contains some steps again. This leads to the tonic which is confirmed over the pedal, and Debussy brings down the melody in steps again. The following bar is all about parallel motion, again in steps. All the 4 voices move in the same direction. On the first beat we have a C-flat major 7th chord in second inversion. The progression moves into an A-flat minor 7th chord, which we can also label as the 6th scale in degree in C-flat major. Maybe a bit far-fetched, but eventually Debussy starts to work his way to C-flat major using this cadence here. Again, there is no 3rd present in this dominant. Also notice this rhythmic cell from the main melody. The melody echoes over another reharmonization. I would argue for a chord progression in the key of G-flat major, but there is no cadence present. Now we can really say that harmonic analysis in its classical context probably makes little sense here. The echo continues over another series of chords. Now the new key center is confirmed. Not E-flat minor, but E-flat major is confirmed. Again by a dominant without a 3rd. This cell is also material from the main melody. Debussy starts building tension in E-flat major with a nice dreamy upward melodic line indicating un peu animé. Here we have a dominant 9th 11th chord over a tonic pedal. Upward melodies in parallel motion again then lead to a surprising climax on the C-flat major chord. Debussy prescribes mezzo forte, the loudest dynamic in the piece. The C-flat major chord is remote in the key of E-flat major, but it is borrowed. Here is how that works. The 6th scale degree in E-flat major is C. If we lower this 6th, we have C-flat. In European analysis, this is called the Muldur variant of the chord. We now have C-flat, E-flat, and G, which is quite dissonant. If we lower the 5th to G-flat, we now have C-flat, E-flat, and G-flat, which is a consonant major chord due to the perfect 5th C-flat and G-flat. These 5ths of Muldur and Dur-Moll variants are often altered to get regular chords. This new chord can now be viewed as the subdominant in G-flat major, and indeed Debussy starts moving away from E-flat major to G-flat major. The beautiful triplet melody echoes an octave lower and Debussy establishes a cadence in G-flat major. But the G-flat major has an added 6th or 6th ajouté if you prefer. The added 6th confirms our interpretation of the folk melody harmonization in the beginning. In this new contrasting passage, the G-flat major chord with added 6th is elaborated in parallel motion. The first phrase ends on a half cadence V11 chord, of course, again without a 3rd. Then a similar phrase starts but moves higher. We now expect a cadence, because we have a 2nd scale degree 9th chord followed by a dominant D-flat chord with a 3rd. But Debussy shamelessly evades the cadence by giving us the subdominant C-flat major. The opening melody returns and perhaps confirms the ending of the piece. The melody then lands beautifully on E-flat minor, the parallel key of G-flat major, and this is the first time we have this chord in the composition. A static atmosphere is created by the melody that moves very slowly now, but we feel that the piece is not over yet, as the melody keeps moving downward. Actually, this melody is the same as in bar 13, but it is augmented with an improvisational character. This augmentation continues on the next bar over the tonic. Then Debussy presents us with a passage we heard before in bar 14. He extends this sequence-like passage without modulating, and it ends on the 2nd scale degree in 2nd inversion. The piece ends with an upward fading melodic line supported with a sort of plagal cadence. The only thing that still lingers are 2 echoes on D-flat and G-flat octaves. And there you have it, La Fille aux Cheveux de lin. Perhaps one of my favorite piano miniatures in the repertoire. It's so simple yet so daring at the same time. It's a rare moment in music history where ultimate improvisation meets form and structure. You can hear that structure and harmony is beginning to fall apart, but Debussy does not throw it all away. What is left is music inspired by genius intuition, with ideas from the past and from other cultures as well. A timeless classic if you ask me.